program this evening. I'm Leslie McClurg. I'm a health correspondent for KQED, which is the local NPR station. And we have a great conversation tonight with Manoush Zomorodi. She is the author of a new book called Body Electric. It's a fantastic book that we're going to dive into. She's also host of the TED Radio Hour and many other amazing things. She's received 2 Gracie Awards for Best Radio Host and a Webby Award for Best Podcast Host. Really, she should probably be in this chair hosting this conversation. And again, her new book is Body Electric, The Hidden Health Costs of the Digital Age and New Science to Reclaim Your Well-Being. This is the 3rd time in the last 5 days I've had the opportunity to interview her.
Or Leslie, you guys.
No. It just keeps getting better. 3 times.
That's true, actually.
True, right? Yeah, we're just warming up. You guys get the creme de la creme. Melissa Painter is founder and CEO of Breakthrough, which is an app that guides users through 2-minute movement breaks. You're going to be convinced after this conversation to move a lot more. Maybe we'll even start moving during the conversation. Painter is a pioneer in human embodied intelligence, spatial computing, and kinetic literacy, all above my pay grade, working to redefine how we interact with technology to protect human health and cognitive performance. So first, Manoush, I imagine you wrote a book because your own body was hurting a little bit. What was going on for you that you were like, I think I need to move?
Yeah. So for me, it was became acute during the pandemic, that sense where we were all inside. And for me, I was so lucky. I was healthy. I was safe. I was all those things. So why did I feel so exhausted, drained, and like I couldn't do anything other than close my laptop at the end of the day and crawl over to the couch to scroll on my phone and watch Netflix? I mean, I want to make sure to say it was amazing how quickly we pivoted to working online and being in touch with our families and technology. Yay.
And making radio.
Yes,
from
and making
home
radio.
suddenly.
Yes, in a Harry Potter closet.
Exactly.
Underneath, which that was something. But that sort of sense of physical exhaustion that I felt after being on a screen, I kind of didn't understand it. And I thought things would get better after we came back into the world. But, a lot of life stayed very screen focused. And that feeling of exhaustion, everybody was talking about it. They're like, I feel like crap at the end of the day. I was like, I know, me too. What is going on? So I had written previously a book about creativity and the power of letting your mind wander. But I wanted to understand the biological and physical health implications of all this sitting and looking at screens. And so that is sort of what led me to partner with Dr. Keith Diaz, a physiologist at Columbia University Medical Center, who has made it his life's mission to understand the minimum amount of movement that the human body needs on a daily basis so that we don't go to an early grave. So he's setting the bar very low. And he had this incredible discovery. I thought it was incredible that 5 minutes of gentle movement every half hour during long periods of sedentary screen time had outsized effects. It slashed people's blood glucose. It lowered their blood pressure. It made them able to concentrate again. It improved their mood. So I actually joined his study up at the lab because I was like, I'm a relatively healthy person. I'm not sure this is going to work. So I had one day where I sat on my butt as usual and did my laptop thing.
And did not move the entire day.
I went to the bathroom. I took, I had a lunch break. I ate at my desk. I kind of did a full 8-hour day at my desk while they measured my glucose levels, heart rate, blood pressure, the whole thing. And then the second day, I took these 5-minute movement breaks, and you had me walk on a treadmill at 2 miles per hour. So I'm a New Yorker. Let me tell you, 2 miles per hour. That's like a wander in the park. So I was like, okay, sure. And I was kind of impressed at emotionally how I felt different. I was able to concentrate the whole day. I wasn't as anxious by the end. I had energy at the end of the day to go home and make a nice dinner for my family, as opposed to feeling like I needed to nap as I went home on the subway. But what really shocked me were the results that he gave me, which was that my blood sugar was cut in half. My blood pressure dropped by 5 points. And I actually rated the quality of my work as higher on the day that I had all these interruptions. And I was like, whoa, that is counterintuitive in a society where we have been taught since we go to kindergarten that a good worker is sitting and looking ahead and butts in chairs and paying attention and grinding. So I was like, okay, so breaks need to be part of the strategy. I get this. So we ended up partnering together. Well, I told Keith, I was like, everybody should be doing this. And he's like, I don't think they will. I just don't think we live in a culture where
it's
we're
really hard to stand up every 30 minutes and walk around for 5 minutes. It's not an easy
100%.
thing.
And he said that too. So we ended up partnering NPR and Columbia to do a global clinical trial where we had 20,000 people sign up to try to take these movement breaks either every half hour, every hour, or every 2 hours, because we wanted to test that feasibility as well. And I am delighted to tell you that yesterday we got confirmation that it has been accepted for scientific publication, which is huge. Yeah, that's a really big deal. Super exciting. That's my first time to have my name on a sign. So it's like personal, like such a nerd. I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell my parents. So we had these incredible results from people. Of the people who managed to stick with the breaks, 80% of them actually made it through for the full 2 weeks. 82% actually liked taking breaks. Fatigue dropped by up to 28%. We heard from people who felt like they were back in their bodies again, like they had regained that ability to focus, that they didn't hate their jobs for not for nothing. And also the most surprising thing, well, not surprising to you, that productivity actually slightly rose, which I found fascinating. So those were the main study results. And while Keith has been working on getting the data together and submitting it for scientific publication, I spent the last couple of years going through these 20,000 people's, like the stories that they wrote and the hacks that they had to get these movement breaks into their lives and the mindset shifts that they needed to make, whether they worked in an academic sort of setting, if they were a student, or if they were an information worker, or if they were retired, because that's a whole nother set of challenges because your day is kind of flipped in many ways. So that is what the book is about, looking at the different life stages, where movement fits in, how we can rethink the sort of structures that we have already, and the cognitive benefits as well.
And did all of those many thousands of people who did the study see the same physical benefits in terms of blood pressure, et cetera?
Well, we couldn't actually, have 20,000 glucose monitors, unfortunately. Okay. So we did hear, though, anecdotally from people who partnered with their physicians to do it as part of a program, because the doctors were like, well, I've never heard of this, but like, it can't hurt. There's no downside to you taking movement breaks in any way. It's very safe. So I think a lot of them were very surprised at the outsized effects. And one woman, for example, like by the end of the 2 weeks, she was able to start tapering her insulin. Her blood pressure dropped 40 points, which was kind of crazy. And what I find more interesting is she texted me the other day, actually. It sort of kicked off a sense that she felt good about her body, that she could do this. She walked on her treadmill. She started to lose weight. She started to feel good about herself again. And it led to her paying more attention to her sleep. She started to eat better. And she texted me to say that on the same day that the book came out, she got her official certification as a health coach. She works in HR at a big hotel company. So she, it kicked off something major for her. Other people, it was much smaller. But, this sense, like if you get a little joy back in your day, you work in news, Leslie.
I'll take a little tiny bit of joy. A little drip would keep me going.
Exactly.
Melissa, talk about your protocol. So it's a little bit different. What is Breakthrough? How does it work? How long are these breaks?
So our insight was that both if people could get more movement back into their work or their school day, that we're full-bodied thinkers and learners, and that it was going to impact physical health, because the study you guys did was really novel to get people to take it, but people had been looking in labs, like sedentary behavior is bad. That was known already. What hadn't been done was people trying to intervene. So we were curious about the other components of it. How could it help you shift your mood, and what would it do to your productivity? basically.
Which is the real kicker, right? I mean, that's what really holds people back is like, I can't take this time out because I need to send one more email. I need to finish this one more task.
That's part
I'm on deadline.
Yeah. I mean, we really have shifted our sense of pace, time, accountability, and agency in our workday based on just how fast our tech can move, which does not remotely relate to how our cognition works, how our bodies work, et cetera. So we were looking at that problem. We were also looking at something that, two other things. One is that people who have a lot of body-based knowledge, whether it comes from athleticism, whether it comes from adventure athletes spending a lot of time outdoors, whether it comes from creative movers, dancers, et cetera, have a lot of knowledge about being human that is cut off from many of us. And a lot of my research was actually about that. Why does an adventure athlete tell me that when they're out on the trail, they feel a connection to historical time and they feel more of a connection to community? Why does a child who takes risks physically as a little kid stand up with more confidence in a boardroom? Like, we were looking at that. How does movement touch all these other aspects of your life and your personality? And then the last thing, the reason we designed Breakthrough the way that we did, it needed to be fast. So Manoush and I don't have an argument about this. I agree with 5 minutes, but ours is 2. Because I will tell you, and we hear this back from nurses at the NHS and engineers at SAP, I would feel guilty if it was longer than that. Now, just don't tell them. It takes time to stand up. If our break is 2 minutes long, by the time they've done the whole thing, they're hitting a 5-minute protocol. But the one other component of it is they're taking a choice about how they want to change their mood. So picking how do you want to feel afterwards? Because one of the things that we learned is a lot of people were saying no to movement because they thought it was for fitness and it didn't seem like it was for them. And if we could give them a different angle in, no, what if it helps you feel more energized? What if maybe it helps you feel more joyful? It was a doorway to people who didn't feel welcome otherwise.
I did it today. I did the protocol, and it, a screen pops up basically, and at least the one I did. I don't know if it's, but
There's a bazillion.
the example
You got
one
one.
that
I hope
did.
it was a good one. I hope it
But
wasn't.
It was fun. It was there was a screen. It popped up, and then there was a circle, and you got to choose creative, focus.
Yeah.
Different aspects. I chose creative, and then what came on.
That's a weird one.
So
what
it was
happened?
interesting. It was a little bit weird. It just starts. So there's just a body moving, and I assumed I was supposed to mirror the body moving.
That was your body moving.
Oh, right, because I had to turn my camera on.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
but it was inspiring me, right, because it was telling me to
You
do
were inspiring
different
yourself.
things.
That's right.
I think.
That's right.
I mean, unless my head was directing. Anyway, I started moving, and then there was waves crashing in the background, and it felt like my point is, it felt like a bit of an immersive experience.
That was where it actually, the
I imagine
origin
was the
point was
point.
in immersion. It was in full-on immersion interactivity. What we learned is that in most people's workday, they don't feel like they can change anything. Time marches. There's 8,000 things you wish were different. They're all going too slow. And a lot of people, to be honest, I mean, we're all in this room. That means we probably have jobs that give us some form of individual agency. But I am here to tell you that is not the lived reality of most humans on this planet. Their minutes are getting counted. They're just trying to make a paycheck, and there's hard jobs out there. So if you can give someone in those seats a 2-minute moment where they feel like they're in charge, and they did something, they moved their arm, something happened. Like, honestly, that feedback loop has value.
What is happening to me as I'm sitting here? We're going to be motivated to stand up in a moment. But what is happening that's not so good?
Okay, so can we just set guidelines? No shame that we're all sitting here together. But now that you asked, that was my question to Keith, which was like, okay, I get it. Sitting is the new smoking, but like, why? What is happening? I want to understand. And he said, and I apologize because this is an image you will never be able to shake free. Your body is like a kinked garden hose. It is kinked at your torso and at your knees. And if you think of a kinked garden hose, when water is coming through, pressure begins to build up. This is blood flow that stops. The other thing he said is, a standing desk seems like a great idea, except the problem is leg muscles need stimulation. Only when they're stimulated can they act like a sponge and suck in the glucose and lipids that is in the bloodstream and also push the oxygen up to your brain. So
just standing straight up is not enough.
Unfortunately, no.
Even if you stand up for 30 minutes and sit and stand like they tell you to, no.
No. I mean, if your standing desk is an impetus to movement, then rock out, go for it. But and then here comes more bad news. I'm so sorry. Even if you work out in the morning, if you sit all day long after that, it doesn't matter.
What if you work out after?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know. It's the worst. That's what I said. I was like, Keith, come on, man. And he's like, I am really sorry. I have to tell you this.
But it's still good for you, right? You know, we're not saying
100%. He's like, don't stop working out. Like that, you're going to, increase muscle strength and cardiovascular capacity, and you'll feel good. All of these great things for you. However, there's actually a term for them. They're called active couch potatoes. So they're the people who work out in the morning or are weekend warriors, but then spend the majority of their day seated, and they see the same issues of potentially having chronic health problems creep in after weeks, months, years that we spend sitting.
Are we aging faster? What are all of those physical ailments that are going to come if you...
It literally leads to every chronic condition. And if you're a woman, it ups your chance of an early death by 35%. And if you're a guy, it's by 19%. So that is bad news.
Wait, did you just say 35%?
I did. And I hope everyone in this room is listening. But
does anyone else want to start jumping?
But let's talk about the miraculous side of it, because it is outrageous that our body is so incredibly well designed that all it takes is 5 minutes of motion to turn everything back on. So, part of our vantage point is that the problem that we have collectively about movement in this country is it's too easy to get to 35 and your body's there because it hurts, and now your kid's the one's doing sports, and you can't take the first step because the first step seems too big. And that's a myth, because the truth is just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And how many times? As many as you can fit in.
I actually read something, Johns Hopkins researchers, that said that the average 19-year-old now moves the same amount as the average 60-year-old.
Yeah, that is a real problem.
And I don't say that to it's not that 19-year-olds are lazy, but we truly have built their world around screens. I have a 19-year-old at home. I keep for research purposes. No, he's my son. And I see it, he's on his laptop doing his homework. He just got home from college. He's checking his phone to meet up with his friends. We're watching Netflix. It's how we bond in the evenings when he lets us. And so he's not lazy, but it's just everything revolves around this. And that becomes its own sort of habit and inertia, as we all know. But what I think we're missing when we have been talking so much about the mental health effects of tech use and young people is I think we need to start having this physical health issue as part of that. We have blamed the content. We have blamed the tech companies. Yes, and yes, and yes. However, there also has to be a discussion of where our bodies fit into this problem too.
It's an enormous piece of the puzzle. And if you were to research this component of it, well, first off, we have more than 5 senses, right? So you talk about interoception all the time. We talk about interoception and proprioception, but you also have a vestibular sense, which is your sense of balance. And there's 5-year-olds showing up in kindergarten who cannot remotely balance because no one ever let them do anything to free play. Well, that really impacts your ability to concentrate. There's a deep link between those things. So you start out from that very young age, and then you factor on up what happens if you never got to learn anything from this side of the equation. It directly leads to anxiety. And I'm saying not having enough movement leads to anxiety. Not moving enough outdoors, not enough free play movement with friends leads to anxiety.
Define interoception and sort of what happens. So you're talking about the content, et cetera, but just the physical, what happens when we're looking at our screens to our interoception. Define that.
So I think that's, so the other part that we need to add to this, we've talked about the sedentary part and where do screens fit in? Because I think we have different takes on this, but also are similarly aligned.
We actually agree.
Oh, do we?
We do.
How boring.
So that was my question, was where do screens, why are screens a problem? And
is it sitting or is it?
Yeah, exactly. Is it just the sitting? Precisely. But I felt why did I have this disembodied sense that almost I was a brain with a brain stick with a flesh bag attached. Do you know what I mean? The sense of
yes.
there was,
unfortunately,
sorry, that's gross. But I was what? Oh yeah, I have a body that needs tending to. oops, forgot like what was going on. So I started learning more about this relatively new field, maybe not as new as I think, but there seems to be a renewed vigor into researching interoception. And that is the body's way of telling the brain what it needs. So it can be subconscious, take another breath, you don't even know that's happening. Or it can be like, you need a break, your back is hurting and you're anxious, and also you need more oxygen, and so stand up, please. Which is what, when I'm like look up and have that dazed feeling like I've just come out of a movie theater, but I'm only just on my laptop. Exactly. So there is starting to be new research in understanding how being on a screen disconnects the sort of sense of what's going on in your body and what it needs. University of Bern is oddly one of the places that's doing a lot of this research. And they did exactly that. They tested how did movement breaks reconnect people to their sense of what their physical needs were. And of course, prove the same sort of thing. So their next thing that they're looking into is in schools, actually.
In terms of what it means that we're teaching our kids on screens the entire time?
Exactly.
Got it. But your breakthrough is on a screen, correct?
It is on a screen. But I'm here to tell you that once you're moving, you're not looking. And we hear this from people all the time. They look in the scene, then they let go, and they're listening to the sounds. It's like you're dancing with someone. That's what it's meant to be like. Mm-hmm. The reason it's on a screen, and this goes back to the sad part of our tech tools, is that, again, if you're a call center worker at, I won't say the name of any of the many companies that use them in that context, you're not allowed up. It's a big deal to get you up out of your chair. We have companies that we deal with where we've heard back from end users that it's not okay for them to stand up to take a break, because at any time a journalist could walk in and it would look like they weren't doing their job, because they're a public service. This thing about what we've told ourselves of sit still to work hard has so permeated our culture that, so there's a lot of stigma about walking away. We were working on Breakthrough before COVID, and we were working on it because we realized that the minute that there were collaboration tools at work, Slack, Teams, whatever it was, you no longer had to get up and walk over to your colleague and look over their shoulder.
Right.
And most people were using that as their break. So instead, we were finding people who literally would say to us, I do laps to the M&Ms and laps to the bathroom because I know I need to walk, and those are the only socially acceptable ways to do it at my job. So this was a problem pre-COVID. Wow. The thing for COVID for us that happened is there was a sea of people in the tools that we were appearing in, but also for the first time, the leaders were feeling it in their own bodies.
Oh, interesting.
Because they had to work from home in front of their screen all day long. So they knew what it felt like.
And does the movement matter, Manoush, or can you literally do anything? And is it better if you're lifting weights or doing squats, or?
So I'll tell you what Keith's take on that is. He used walking simply because it was something that was mostly accessible, it was free, etc. However, some people, walking is not an option. And there is research into arm movements that is also perfectly acceptable. Curious to hear your thoughts on that. We told people also, like, if they didn't want to walk, you could vacuum for 5 minutes. You could march in place while you were on a Zoom call. That's totally fine. We didn't say get off your screen. We made it, you do what you need to do in order to get these breaks. Because we also wanted to see, did people use the breaks as time to get off screens or not? And we heard both. Some people were like, I've just tried to integrate it into my life, and it's now that I can do it at work, it makes total sense. And other people were like, I love that I'm using these 5 minutes to put the phone down and get out into nature. People saw added benefits when they were in nature. No surprise. So other things we had people do, fold laundry while you shuffle side to side. You could walk the dog. You could have a dance party. You could walk the pretend dog. Like, honestly, it was like anything to move. You did not have to break a sweat at all.
Do you have to stand up? Like, for example, let's say your commute is 2 hours.
Well,
can you just do a little like one arms in the car?
Keith, we did have this one woman who was like emergency, like 24 hours into the study. We're like, okay. She's like, I drive a lot. Should I pull over to the side of the highway to take my break? We were like, Oh, no, please don't do that. Please get to your destination safely and then take your break. And I think that to me is the crucial thing. Like the goal is not to turn people into robots who are like, must take break, and like walk around their dining room table. The point is like, do I need a break now? Is it going to work for me right now? If the answer is no, fine. Like show yourself some grace, like the idea is not to have fitness. It is not to kill it. It is just to feel a little better in your body. It is something you get to do, not have to do. That's the goal. And I will say, to go back to this idea of interoception, what we saw in the beginning was the number one way people remembered to take their breaks. No big surprise. They set a timer, right? But we heard from many people, that by the end of the 2 weeks, they didn't need their timer anymore. Like one guy was like, I don't even need to set it anymore. I'm like, my body is like, get up.
Meaning their interoception potentially is back online.
Exactly.
So it took me reading your book and talking to you 3 times for me to put this together until this moment. But Melissa, I've noticed as a journalist that if I'm stuck on something in a story, that I should walk to the grocery store that's 5 blocks away and buy myself something to drink or something. And I'll usually solve the issue as I'm walking.
Yes.
What is happening and why does that sort of come together as I'm making that stroll?
It's a really fascinating and beautiful thing that Degree to Which movement and creativity and fresh ideas are tied together. There's a couple things going on when you're walking. One is that you are getting just enough external stimuli that it's soft fascination. So part of your monkey mind, your fast brain, is getting relaxed by that. So the deep thinker, the part that is able to solve a problem or come up with a poem or come up with a fresh idea, can reveal itself. And that's why we have these moments of flash of inspiration, which is amazing because we've all experienced it. I mean, even grouchy IT engineers have experienced it, because anytime I talk to them about breakthrough and people look at me, my dog will look at me funny if I do that. I say, have you ever gone on a walk when you've gotten stuck? And the answer comes to you, and there's not a human on the planet that can say no to that question. So that is a big part of why movement belongs in the workday.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I do. Okay, so my first book was about my inability to think creatively, because I hypothesized that it was because every tiny little moment in my day when I used to allow my mind to wander, I was now being productive by texting my husband or checking the headlines or answering an email. And that led me down another fun rabbit hole to understand what happens in the brain when you use boredom as a gateway to positive, constructive mind wandering. And that part of the brain, the default mode that does original thinking, problem solving, creative thinking, and also something that I think is really crucial for the kids part of this conversation. It's something called autobiographical planning, which is looking back at your life, figuring out what is the story of who you are right now, and then who do you want to be? So it's time travel, imagining, I could be X, and then figuring out the steps to get there. But you need to give yourself the time to let those weird thoughts come on in and crash with some other weird thoughts and have that moment of I guess I could do that. Strange. So once again, being productive requires doing nothing is what I've...
Well, and there's one other piece to that. It's also how we organize new knowledge. And so it's really fascinating to watch, the drive and the pace of what we're seeing in the tech world right now, because it's completely counter to being able to come up with fresh solutions, novel, constructive ideas, and to learn anything new. So, yeah.
Let's just go there. So I can type anything into my computer right now and it can tell me the whole, if I'm using AI, if I'm using ChatGPT, right? I can just ask it a question and it comes back with so much more information, so much faster than I could ever do. This seems to only rev my heart up. I can't go that fast. It can write this article in 25 seconds.
It also can't come up with an idea that a human didn't think of first, by the way. It can just remix stuff, so it's not creative.
And what is sort of the value of the multiple multisensory human in that creativity that potentially AI, I don't think we talk about this often enough, that AI will never have.
It will never have. I mean, back to interoception. So part of why interoception is key is how it impacts our cognitive performance. So we don't have the ability to take in all of the information that we just see going on a walk, right? Like we were designed to be able to process on a subliminal way a lot of stuff coming at us. And that's what our interoception is for. So that feeling of someone that knows to go with their gut for a new hire, or is able to see a pattern in a diagnosis that no one has seen yet. That pattern recognition, knowing in your gut first, is interoception. That's actually interoception. And so if you're not online with your body, you can't see those signals. So that's an example of being multisensory as a thinker, which we have that machines don't have. There's a zillion others. I mean, a big one is how do we think together, collectively, and build on each other's intelligence. Also very difficult for a machine.
Where do you see AI sending us in terms of the movement conversation? Are we just going to get tighter and more productive?
Well, so there's a new term coined by, I believe, Berkeley researchers, actually, which is AI brain fry, which is, and I've been talking to some people in tech, and they're like, right now, AI is supposed to make me do less, take stuff off my plate. But right now I'm working 16, 17, 18-hour days. I'm having to oversee the work of 8 different AI agents because it is producing so much stuff. But is it good stuff? We don't know. Everybody has to go back and check and all the things. And so I feel like once again, here we are, like tech will save us and bring us back to our human selves. And like, trust me, I would love to go frolic in more fields if tech takes over. However, and this was something I researched for the book, was this idea that every time an innovation comes in, the whole point is to increase efficiency, right? To use the human body, or in this case, brain, less. And that is where value is extracted from it. And I think what I find so interesting is that we're at this point where we have engineered movement out of our day because we no longer need our bodies to do these things. And I've been thinking about how nobody used to say, like, I really need to get out into nature until the Industrial Revolution happened, right? And then there was an alternative to nature. So you didn't have to call it or name it something, or that, the David Foster Wallace story of like the fish who's like, how's the water? And the other fish is like, what? Like nobody ever said like, did you get movement today? You know what I mean? Until now. And I think we have to start saying like to our kids, not like get off your screen, but how much movement? Did you move your body today? Did you get some stroll time in? Just call it something, name it, be intentional, because otherwise humans are so good at creating these efficiency tools and trapping ourselves using the efficiency tools that will neglect the other things that biologically are imperative.
So, Melissa, whose responsibility is this? Is it my responsibility to take over this and change my work culture? Or, do we convince the heads of corporations? And whose job will this be at the corporation? How does this sort of get going?
It's a really interesting question. It's also the sort of opportunity space and misery space that we've been living in for the past 5 years, because we have voices of people wanting to move more and moving more and begging for movement in the flow of their workday. And then we have everyone designing those work days over here, and they are
talking.
Yeah, oh my goodness. And I feel like this most days, because I get on the phone with someone who, I used to be a dancer, now I never get to move anymore, or my back doesn't hurt for the first time, or blah, blah, blah. And then you get to go talk to whomever, HR, et cetera. And it's not something that anyone's been trying to force into the workplace in a really long time. So it's an interesting,
Is it HR who you usually deal with?
That's the other thing that's complex. What's funny, and that another thing that we don't necessarily think about, is industries that have hardcore safety protocols, aviation, factory floor workers. No one looks at you sideways when you talk about something that they read as good old-fashioned ergonomics. They've known how important it was for a long time. There's safety about knowing where your body is. They practice it. Who doesn't know it is the people who think that they're dealing with the smart people. the people that are supposed to be doing the IT job or the design or whatever. And in that situation, I think one of the problems that we've created for ourselves is that we do think it's the responsibility of the individual worker. We knew that the people who most needed breaks were the ones not taking them. They were the nurses. They were the, working single moms. They were the type A leaders who were grinding. They were not going to make that decision on their own. They needed to have something come into their lives the same way there was coffee in the break room. I mean, it needed to be operationalized. So that's our perception of it. The minute it's an individual's responsibility, it's like, oh, it's well-being. Who is that for? Mm-hmm. You either have to be able to pay for it or you have to have free time. I mean, it doesn't fit in my life. You got to be kidding.
Mm-hmm. Do you both do it? Do you both do your protocols?
Yeah.
And are you just as productive? Did you do it the whole time you were writing your book? Did you get up every 5?
Oh, I had
25
to. Like the first line in my book is I was scared to write this book because I really was scared to write this book. The thought of like writing about why I shouldn't be sitting and looking at a screen for hours at a time
while you're writing
and sitting and looking at a screen kind of. I feel lucky. My body tells me every 45 minutes I am like a squirmy 8-year-old boy who has to move. Sometimes I ignore it if I really am in flow. I sometimes try to trick myself into thinking that today is the one day I don't need it. And yeah, I had to write a book and I still cannot. And I texted my husband the other day. I was like, oh my God, I did not take the movement breaks today. And he's like, oh, what did you do? Did you doom scroll and smoke a pack of cigarettes? Okay, it wasn't that bad. But but it's the truth. And I feel like every time, and I heard this from people over and over again, every time I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then I move. And oh, wow, you feel better. Duh. How much more proof do I need?
Okay. So, and you have to promise me that you're going to tell the truth to this question.
Ooh, yes.
Were you just as productive writing this book as you were in your last book?
Okay. I have actually an experiment that I can share with you. So I recorded both of my audiobooks. The first audiobook was just sucked. I couldn't feel my face at the end of the day. It was exhausting. Like I crawled to the finish. This time, the director of the audiobook was like, so we're recording a book about breaks. Feels like I was like, oh yeah, we got to take the breaks. So we took the breaks. We finished in 3.5 days and a day and a half early. I felt great at the end of it. So like there's constant proof, but it's like anyone who meditates, it's every day is, the human body wants inertia. Or I'll speak for myself. I want inertia. But I feel so much better and alive and, sparky when I get in these movement breaks.
What about you? Do you do your protocol and do you feel better and more productive?
I do. A lot of times for me, I'm doing it to shift my mood or to keep myself from holding my breath while I'm in my email, right? I have to move in order to breathe. I'm one of those people who's like a swimmer because you have to breathe when you're, And so for me, those are the driving forces for it. But I also do laps from my office to the coffee shop, which is about 1.5 blocks away. So I do outdoor breaks, breakaway breaks. I walk the dog on the beach. But yes, I do use Breakthrough.
I do have friends who've gotten dogs because of this.
My dog is a lot happier over the last week.
Right?
Doing this. He's
they
like,
again?
Me. Yeah. He's like, I'm ready.
Totally.
She mentioned it there. So we're sitting there and we're getting tighter. And I think I love that you used, you're turning into a boiled shrimp.
Yeah.
So I'm like this, what's happening to my breathing as I'm doing that?
Yeah. So I'm sure like Bay Area people have heard of screen apnea is the funny term that was coined by Linda Stone, a retired tech executive, because she did her own sort of kitchen table science where she noticed that she was holding her breath when she was in her email and she had chronic respiratory issues. So it was becoming a problem. So she brought in different people and hooked them up to measure their breath, different types of people. So people who were dancers, professional musicians, airline pilots, people who work in information as well. And she saw that the only people who seemed to maintain that sort of breath work and connection between their body was the people who use their body in their work. So I just feel like if you're an airline pilot, you're self-regulating because people's lives are on the line. If you play the cello, you know how to use your body to get the best sound out of your instrument. And like information workers, we need to think of ourselves as information athletes. We need to use our body and our tool is Google Docs, but I think it can be very helpful to think that our instrument is our brain, right? We're trying to get the best out of our cognitive abilities, and that connection between being able to think and not feel foggy and be able to concentrate, and why everyone talks about how they feel like they have ADHD now. I think it's not that absolutely people do, but also maybe for some of us, it's just a matter of oxygenation and movement. So Linda, thanks to Linda, I have a kazoo next to on my desk. And at first I was like, lady, you're nuts. And she was like, let's do Yankee Doodle. And then I found that in many rehab centers, particularly for lung cancer patients, they are now sending kazoos to people because while it makes you laugh, that's one of the things, but you can't help but breathe properly while you walk and play the kazoo.
Amazing.
And you
Maybe
feel
you'll
like
start
a goof.
Yeah, I love that.
God help us. No, not a kazoo movement.
What about, Melissa, all the audio input that we're taking in all the time? So the notifications, our headsets, we're listening to podcasts, we're just constantly taking in information. What is that doing to our body, to our brain, to our nervous system?
Anything that feels like a notification feels urgent. I mean, this is part of why we all think we don't have 5 minutes or 2 minutes, because there are so many notifications. The pace of these tools is so fast. I mean, that makes your adrenaline spike, right? I mean, when we were doing early tests, we were doing them with engineers, and we at the time actually were in Camp Pendleton doing them with Marines, and we were seeing adrenal spike in the information workers that was coming from holding their breath, that was not unakin to what we were seeing in a population that you could argue had way greater reason for having that adrenal spike. So I think, it's not good, but it's also just like a short moment of movement with the body, a short moment of immersion in nature sounds, different kinds of visuals can regulate that, right? And get you back to homeostasis.
Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I talked a lot to an interoception researcher who has been studying how float pods, the saline water, is being used to help people who are having issues with their interoception. So he's mostly dealing with people who have anxiety disorders or eating disorders where they feel like the conversation between the body and the mind is not right. And so they've been testing using, sensory deprivation tanks has weird connotations, but essentially having a reset, like taking in nothing and just quieting the body, quieting all the stimulus. And they're seeing a lot of promising results. And I was like, okay, so a lot of people don't live near a float lab if you're not, in Brooklyn or San Francisco.
I was going to say they're all over town.
I know. You all should go. But he said, we need to encourage people to just lie down in a quiet room, close the shades, no light, no sound, don't listen to music, get the dog out of there. Just try and take in nothing. Don't try to meditate. Just be a pound of flesh lying there. And he said, I was like, 5 minutes? He's like, more like 30 to 45. But what a treat. I'm like, yes, I am going to go decompress.
What was your experience like, and how did it?
Well, I went into the float for the first time. I don't know. Have other people? Are you into floats? Yeah, it was cool. I mean, a little disorienting at first. I was kind of freaked out a little bit at first because you're like, is this my hand? Is this my hand? What is happening? And then that sense when you come out, the world feels very intense. It's a little bit shocking, but so I'm not a float regular, but I am a decompress. Just like if I have to go stare at a wall for half an hour, great.
Although you shouldn't stare at a wall for half an hour, right? Because tell me about the eyes, right? Because there's a big chapter on eyes, and that it's really not great for our eyes to be at a fixed distance for long periods of time, like a screen.
a Berkeley researcher, Maria Liu, who opened the first myopia treatment center in the nation. So when she came from mainland China about, I think it was like 15, 20 years ago, they had been talking about in China how there was this epidemic of kids who were going nearsighted. Myopia was just on the rise. And they tracked it to, real academic pressure. Kids were looking at books and screens for hours and hours and hours. But they'd also been testing treatment. So this idea that people used to think once you're myopic, that's it. You're nearsighted for life. But they developed, they're more common now, these Ortho-K lenses that reshape the eyeball so that it doesn't become egg-shaped, which is what happens when you're looking in front. The eyes want to comply. They want to do what they're like, you want me to look at a screen all the time? I'm going to get really good at looking at a screen all the time. So she's like, you have to tell your eyes, no, I also want you to be able to look into the distance, please, and get outside. And I was like, well, can't you look out the window? And she said, unfortunately, no, because your peripheral vision will adjust and it knows that you're not really looking into the horizon. So,
even if you're looking at the horizon out the window, that's not.
No. I know. Maria's tough. The other thing is once your eyes have stopped growing and you go nearsighted, you are kind of screwed. So, but she told me that people's eyeballs continue to grow into their early 30s. So all these young tech workers who are spending time indoors, they don't have to go nearsighted. They can slow down the progression for sure by taking breaks and getting outside and looking into the horizon, which I thought was fascinating. But she's seeing kids, 3, 4, 5 years old who are going nearsighted. And she said, we never used to see that before.
I welcome the cards if you want to come on up, Dan. I'm happy to keep going on my own threads, but there might be some interesting ones in here. I'll look through these during the...
Because we've been sitting a long time.
Oh, yes! Okay.
Can you teach us the Zoom shuffle?
Okay, this is the Zoom and shuffle. I like to call it that. On our team, it's perfectly fine to have your head bopping up and down. Nobody thinks it's weird, but I did talk to, of course, there are Zoom researchers in Austria, and they said that really the cognitive load that Zoom gives you, you should just turn off your camera and then feel free to take a movement break. That ambient information that comes from being in person with someone, looking into their eyes, looking at their body language, the crinkle, of an eyebrow that tells you they're bemused that you can't see on a Zoom. He's like, that you're working so hard on a Zoom cognitively. Turn it off. Get rid of the visuals. Mm-hmm. So I found that really interesting. And then you can...
Leslie, we got to do arms. You said we had to
yeah.
We're gonna
Why not?
There we go. Little stretch.
Oh, I love it.
We did this on the thing today, and this was part of my...
Nice. Oh, that's good.
That's a good one. That was my breakthrough. And then you got bigger.
That's true.
Oh, that feels good, actually.
All right, we can get...
I like to do the march as well, because, that feels nice.
You didn't know what you're in for tonight.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to sit us down in 60 seconds, but first...
What's your thought on squats? How do you feel about squats?
I think they're brilliant, but I'm not asking anyone to do them in the office yet.
You're not?
No. I mean... We will. You want to come help
level
us?
Level 2. Just gentle, why not?
Oh, yeah, no, there's lots of bending and up knees. Yeah, that we do a lot of.
Does anyone feel a little better?
Yes.
Right? Yes. Right? My hips were getting a little bit tight.
Oh, my God, and it's free.
I mean, we could stand for the rest, but I'm going to take us back down just because some people might not.
Oh, that was good.
And they'll feel.
Yay, great suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. I welcome any other suggestions. Question here. I'm a head of HR for a 15,000 employee tech group. I don't know that I could realistically sell 5 minutes.
That's why it's
times 16 30-minute slots a day, almost 7 hours a week. She's doing math. He or she's doing math.
Yeah.
Does it have to be every 30 minutes? Are there other ways to get the same benefits, breaks after longer periods of time, walking desks for focused work time, walking meetings, etc.?
So in our study, we found that on average, people took 4 to 5 breaks and saw the same benefits.
Yeah.
So
it's not the same benefits. So what would Keith say about that?
So Keith would say,
more is better.
More is better, but he would say, well, what's your goal? Is it to feel like you can focus again, that you feel more positive, that you have more energy? Great, 4 or 5. However, if you're someone like Dana, who had serious health issues, he would say the gold standard is 5 per every half hour. If the goal is to get your blood pressure down, to reduce, if you're a diabetic, it's going to have the results that you need. So for me, more is better, but none is not good. So 1 more break is better than 0 breaks. 2 is better than not. You know what I mean? And perfection is the enemy.
I mean, in our situation, the average person who's touching Breakthrough is using it 2 to 3 times a day.
And then we also 2 to 3 minutes. Two minutes,
and
2 to 3
you
times a
are
day.
guaranteed better productivity for at least 2 hours after a 2-minute break. So every place where we've been able to test down with a fine-tooth comb, the productivity gains have been so high that no one's arguing about the time offline. But the other thing is people aren't dumb. They know their own interoception once they're paying attention to it. If it's someone who's a translator, if it's someone who's looking at oncology reports all day long, if it's someone who's coding, they probably do need hourly and they'll know that. But what you're going to get out of them afterwards is going to be so much more that it's worth the exchange.
I always think of a thread of an email where you've realized that nobody's really bothered to read to the end of the email. And so don't you hate that? And then they respond and then they don't, they're like, but as I previously said, and then the person's like, right. So this eliminates that because people come back, they are ready to read to the end of the email. They answer once with all the information required. Shut that thread down. Yeah, that's what I feel.
I got called out on that today.
Did you?
My editor was like, as I said in the previous, it's a Slack message. As I said in the previous Slack message, I was like, I guess I need to take some more breaks.
The productivity isn't just productivity, it's also safety, the safety gains. So if you're in a health environment, it's public perception, but it's actually really ill-informed.
I was part of the Columbia study.
Yay.
Someone in this room.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Question. I'm a wonder and awe expert showing movement and spatial wonder connection to creativity and well-being. How important do you think it is for someone to anchor in fixed identity and somatic awareness to have benefits?
Oh, goodness. That's not my area of expertise.
Did you track that?
Take that.
I mean, it's interesting and wonderful to see somatic practice on the rise and on the rise even in workplaces. And the idea that people having embodied moments is going to open up these other aspects of their mood, et cetera, I think is really an important element.
I take it back, actually. I do have something to say about this. So Keith would say that when he was talking to younger people, saying to them, it's going to lower your blood pressure. They were like, whatever. But if you tell them you're going to feel more positive and less anxious, that was sort of promoting something that they could feel immediately. And he would suggest taking what he calls the somatic check, which is, how do you feel before your break? Mm-hmm. Body scan. Okay. Take the break. How do you feel after? Oh, back's better. Okay. Okay. Right. And reinforcing that feedback loop, marking the moment that I feel different. And that's going to continue to motivate you to take the breaks, that somatic check, which I love.
So the somatic check, you mentioned this in the conversation that we had over the weekend at the KQED Fest. My 11-year-old was in the audience and she gets screen time on Saturday mornings. And so as she's walking up the stairs, I was like, don't forget to take your breaks, because she was really into the talk. Oh. And she's like, I will, very positively. And then we said, and, check in. How are you feeling? And she's like, I will. And so afterwards we asked her, she's like, I don't feel very good.
Oh, yay. I love tweens and preteens.
I don't know that she's going to cut back on her screen time, but it was good anchoring.
Yeah, no, one of the things Leslie's referring to is this I wish I'd done this with my kids before they became teenagers, which is that screen time, any parent knows, after iPad, they're a nightmare. It's a disaster. You're like, why did I bought myself 45 minutes, but now I have to deal with this monster. And speaking for myself. And so my whole thing is there's the pain scale faces test that if you go to an emergency room, for kids, it's hard to quantify your pain. So they give them a scale and they're like, which face represents how you feel right now? How bad is it? I think we should have a screen faces scale. How do you feel beforehand? Are you grouchy? Okay, you're grouchy. Oh, you feel fine. Cool. And then do it after screen time. And if it's, lowers, then okay, so maybe that was a little too long. Let's experiment. Maybe tomorrow, we'll do it 5 minutes less and see, and give them sort of the sense that they are in charge of figuring out how to feel good. Their job is to support themselves, and life is an experiment, and all these tech companies are experimenting on all of us.
Yeah.
Let's take back a little bit of the agency here.
I'm imagining the answer to this is anything works, but can yoga or Tai Chi movements be introduced as breaks?
That's what we're built on. I mean, Breakthrough is built from many different martial arts and creative movement and yoga blended together, so no one looks at it and goes, oh, I don't like yoga or I don't like Tai Chi. It's like all a mash and sort of shaken up. But the thing about those body traditions is they help you work on things like flexibility, like balance, like range of motion, all of which can shift your emotions, but they also, from a longevity standpoint, from a mobility standpoint, from a functional mobility standpoint, have a really profound impact. And so our whole system is about sneaking that in to the workday, but not naming it and not coloring it, because then you get the I don't like this or I don't like that. Instead, people they don't like the break they got, they just close it and go to the next one.
Is being so sedentary an American problem? You all are a global company.
It's interesting. I mean, at this point, we're in over 150 countries, and we do see different cultural nuance about how people feel about moving in public, and that's been really interesting to encounter. However, we were talking about this just the other day. We exported our productivity tools into all of these countries.
Meaning the phones and the computers went out.
I mean, everyone's on some form of Google, Microsoft. I mean, these are the tools people are using to do most of their work. And so along with that went the American view of a calendar, went the American view of what a workday should look like. And it's gone into places where people may still take 2-month vacations, but the rest of the days they're working, they look very American. And so that means that the cultural, and then you get nuance. I mean, the UK, there's a huge amount of guilt around break taking that you feel like culturally goes all the way back to war effort stuff. I mean, seriously, it's like these things that are really like, I mean, Americans have many weird issues around break taking, from work ethic ideas to I'm totally independent, I'm different than everyone else. Don't tell me this works for anyone. If it works for anyone, it's not going to work for me. I mean, there's all these cultural nuances, but yeah, we've exported our fast food and our tech tools.
But isn't that so crazy? I mean, I'm old enough to remember when you'd be like, I'm going outside to put smoke into my lungs.
We thought about that so much.
Crazy.
I know, but where do we got, I mean, I guess that was American too, but I mean, that was also very European to go have a smoke break. But yeah, it was culturally allowed. I mean, the question is, what is it going to take to get this to just be culturally allowed?
Okay, you're the experts. What is it going to take this to get into and actually shift our relationship to?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of first people on the dance floor right now. From my perception, we see them popping up all over the place, literally. So I think two things. It's the job to tell the story loudly, and to our communities and to each other and to our kids and to our parents. But then it's also the job to question yourself about what's hard about break taking. And what is it that makes these small... We have a board member who always says, the American ego is so big, they think if they step away for 2 minutes, the entire world is going to come crashing down. It's like, what? But he's not wrong. I mean, there are these ingrained things, right? And it's interesting to confront them.
Are there countries, places that are leading this, that are examples for Americans to follow, that are maybe even upping their productivity because they're actually moving?
Well, it's a funny thing that, I mean, moving collectively in community outdoors has happened way more in Asia forever. I mean, it's very, very normal. And there's actually a beautiful movement-based break called Radio Tao we were talking about this just the other day. It was actually started by an American company in the 1918 or something.
You said Radio Tao.
Put that in my book.
Yeah,
but
no one in the U.S. took it up, but they took it up in Japan, and it's still very cohesive and profound there. So, I think we always, of course, have lots to learn from other countries. I also love the countries that just have creative movement. I mean, we're all over the place in Costa Rica and Colombia, and Mexico right now is mandating active pauses. And I was on the phone with someone the other day who was saying that the receptionist has put up a new rule that no one can ask her a question if they don't dance their way to her desk. And they're blaming it on breakthrough. I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. So
What is the best argument you have when you have a CEO or an HR director who is like, no? How do you get those folks?
we bring them the words of their own employees about what people say about how they feel after 2 minutes. And when someone literally says, I felt bad and now I feel fearless, or I feel 10 years younger, or I'm ready to end my day and be a decent parent to my child, I mean, you really just have to be a jerk to not listen to that. Now, I'm here to tell you, there's plenty of them out there, but I mean, that's been our method.
A question from the audience. Are the electronic devices of others harmful? Think of secondhand smoke to non-smokers. I often wonder that on BART when every single person is...
Oh, man.
That's a really funny way to think of it, as secondhand smoke. Oh
Any
boy.
thoughts?
I don't know.
I have a theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
I mean, I lived in New York. You're there now.
Yeah.
I lived in New York before devices. And think of a moment on the subway or a moment on the sidewalk where you'd actually have like your best encounter of the day with a complete stranger you've seen once, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen if they're doing this.
That is true. However, we've dumped on our tech so much this hour. I always feel the need to go back and be like, but I explore neighborhoods that I never used to explore because of Google Maps.
Yeah,
And like I'll find like the weird, restaurant and I'll make my whole family walk to it, which will kill me. But our joke in our family is that we always end up by the side of a highway because we're like, well, we can walk to this. Let's just walk to it. And they're like, oh my God, could we just take an Uber like normal families? And I'm like, no, I think we can walk. Like, I think it's fine. We can walk. It's like only 3 miles, you guys. Happened to me yesterday. I walked 9 miles yesterday by accident. Yeah.
Oh, wow. 9 miles.
But you guys, San Francisco's the best for walking. Like, it is
But the whole
best.
city's only... Anyways.
Yeah,
that's a long
right?
walk.
You guys are so lucky. And I feel like of all the places, like I'm talking in New York and everyone's like, yes. And I come to San Francisco, everyone's like, yes. And then you look at the middle of the country where people are either in their car or they're seated. And that's truly it. Yeah. Like, this is where I think, have a lot of work to do. And I mean, TikTok dance videos might be a way in. I don't know. Just saying, like, we got to find, like, I was telling you, I want pretend smoke breaks.
You could bring back the puffers that like the 8th graders used to use. I used to use as candy cigarettes.
Just pretend.
Okay.
I don't know. We need something weird to happen so that people are like, it's fine. Get up, walk. It's fine.
I think I told you this, but a friend of mine, I asked her, she was trying to quit smoking. And I was like, what is it? Like, why can't you just quit? She's a really healthy person. We were rock climbing friends. And she was like, it's my recess. I just go out there. And it's like, we need to reintroduce recess for all of us.
Recess, which, by the way, is not a law in the majority of states in the United States and is on the docket in New York State right now. And Hochul is probably not going to sign it, which is crazy. So maybe we start with like recess laws and then maybe we go to recess for adults. I don't know. We need, I feel like there's clearly a big cultural shift that has to happen. I feel like we're all going to do our part, but I don't know what the thing is that's going to, if we connect it to the mental health thing that has finally taken off in terms of people questioning tech and adolescence and mental health. I think if we can make that connection, then maybe we can do something bigger.
Don't you both feel, though, that we're at a tipping point? Like, you're not the only one that felt like you're going to crawl over to your couch and doom scroll, right? We're all, I think, feeling that it doesn't feel good to sit all day. Do you think we're at a point where people are ready to take this on? Are you hopeful?
I do. I think that the confrontation in a lot of workplaces with AI, I mean, we see this, and there's people in this room that, are writing about this all the time, that it's a moment where people are really questioning, what am I bringing to the equation? And part of what you're bringing to the equation is all the things that you can only know if you have embodied moments during your workday. I mean, we haven't talked about people who move all day long, but I will tell you that
Right.
people who move all day long, nurses, factory workers, they need these moments of movement breaks that are intentional as much as the rest of us do. And for a nurse, it may just be, it's the moment where her head's not divorced from her body, where she can emotionally check in with herself versus hitting some terrible wall 3 months in and just burning out.
That surprised me because I did an event recently at a Pilates studio, and I was like, but the Pilates people were like, oh, we need these so bad. I was like, why? You're teaching Pilates, you're standing, you're touching us and moving us. And they're like, I need movement for myself.
That's right.
I was like, oh, okay.
I did take a class just yesterday at one of these Body Rock studios, and she was kind of like she was so robotic. I mean, she knew her script so well, and the music was so loud, and I kind of got this kind of. She was pretty unembodied in her teaching, so I think that's what they're talking
That's
about. I shouldn't have said the name of it. There's many Body Rock studios, but the practice was awesome. I had a really good time in the
Stone
practice.
of health, physical health.
Terrible
place.
Yeah, exactly. Some exercise class.
Pebble anatomy.
Yeah,
place.
something like that. Melissa, how does it feel to work on your birthday? Happy birthday!
That is ridiculous. I was saying to Banouche, she's my birthday present because we've been working on this for a long time. And we also do believe it's a tipping point. It's a movement. But the stories going out, the common sense going out, the science going out with the stories, with the common sense, which Manoush embodies so well, is deeply important.
How can we make movement break the same as touch grass, right? Like, it's so
basically-
ridiculous. Of course, we should all touch grass. Let's touch grass. Like, how do we get that?
We need to figure out the right one-liner, or we need to bring hula hoops back. I don't know. I mean, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, thank
hula
you
hoops, I don't-
both so much. They're going to bring hula hoops back in the lobby, signing books, yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
totally.
She's
Yeah.
going to do it hula hooping?
Thank you.
No, I will not be hula hooping, but I will sign and shuffle if you request. Or I can show you the Snoopy dance, also available.
Again, Manoush Samarodi, author of Body Electric. And Melissa Painter, CEO of Breakthrough. I highly recommend.
Yes, thank you.
For more information about Commonwealth Club membership and upcoming programs, you can visit www.commonwealthclub.org. I'm Leslie McClurg. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, Leslie.
Take care.
That was so fun.
That was great.